Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Bigfoot Report. Got a few more that we want to share with you on this newest episode. We are going to start off talking about Bigfoot in the backyard. Then we're going to tell you all about when Bigfoot threw a huge rock. Then we're going to talk about how it was connected to the Adirondacks. And we are going to end it with that was no bear. Guys, if you have had an encounter and would like to have it narrated by either Tiffany or myself, we would love to do that for you. Please send those to the Bigfoot Report podcast at gmail.com. All right, guys, we are ready to go. You sit back, relax. Let's get started. Hey, Wayne and Tiffany. First off, love the new show format. Don't think I have seen or heard a show yet that's doing it quite like you guys, and I think it's awesome. Please keep doing what you're doing. I wanted to write in and share my experience from when I was a kid, around 13 or 14, I'd say. My aunt and uncle were very well off back then. Still are, actually. He was a professor and a retired attorney. She was the personal secretary for the owner of the largest factory in the town they lived in at the time. I don't want to mention the town, but it's in your home state of Tennessee, Wayne. They are both retired now and living out their golden years very comfortably, doing a lot of traveling and just reaping the rewards of their hard work. They now live in a small, modest home in a beautiful gated community. But back then, they lived on a little over 300 acres in a house that they built themselves. I don't mean they had it built, I mean they built it. My dad actually helped with it some. This house was beautiful. My brothers and sister and I would spend a lot of time there, especially 1 week in May every year when my parents would take their yearly anniversary trip. We always looked forward to it. We had free roam of the land, which actually had 2 small ponds on it. We were in heaven for that whole week. Now, I say free roam of the land, but that's not entirely accurate. I mentioned the 2 ponds. It's true, they did have 2, but we were told to never go near the farthest one from the house. The rule was we could go to the first one, but under no circumstances were we ever to go beyond that point. That was fine when we were y'all younger. But as we got older and learned the area we were allowed to go on like the back of our hands, that forbidden part became all the more intriguing. I remember asking my aunt one day. She was a lot easier to talk to. I asked her why we couldn't go past that first pond. I mean, there was over 100 acres we had never even seen, not to mention a whole other pond to fish. What she said to me has stuck with me from that moment till this one, and always will. She said, I guess you're old enough now to hear the truth, or at least what I know of it. There are things back in those woods that need to be left alone. We have kind of an unspoken agreement. We won't go past that pond, and they will stay on their side of it. Your uncle knows more about it than I do. That's just what I was told. The land has been in his family for several generations, and that's just the way it's always been. She went on to tell me that she saw it one time, or one of them anyway. Apparently there's a family or clan or whatever you want to call it. She and my uncle were walking through the woods one day, not long before they started building on it. There had been a small house on it at one time, but it burnt down, and no one had lived there for 20 plus years. They didn't want to see it continue to go to waste, so they decided to build their home on it. Anyway, they're on this walk, and before you know it, they're at the pond. That's when my uncle broke the news to her about the boogers. That's what his family had always called them. She didn't know what to think. She knew he had a really good sense of humor and liked to joke around, but this felt different to her. She said something like, "Yeah, right," or "Come on now." His expression never changed, though. Keep in mind, my uncle was an attorney at this time, a very educated man who had also flown fighter jets in the Vietnam War. I remember always being amazed and proud to look at all the medals and newspaper clippings they had displayed around the house. He was an educated and very stern man, but could also cut up and play around with you. They don't make them like him anymore. He told her it was no joke and she would soon see for herself. He had been carrying this really thick walking stick the whole time. He took that stick, whacked it against a tree 2 times, then threw his head back and let out this blood-curdling scream that she said lasted anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds. She had to cover her ears, she said. When he was done, she said she just stood there staring at him with her jaw dropped. He, on the other hand, didn't say a word and started staring into the woods through the trees, not speaking, just looking so hard he almost could have burnt down the whole forest with his eyes. She finally was the one that broke the silence when she said, "What the hell was that?" He only said, "Shh, listen." She admitted at that moment she was truly afraid. The look in his eyes was one she'd never seen before. They stood in silence for at least 5 minutes when she began to hear the leaves rustling. They stood in silence for at least 5 minutes until she began to hear the leaves rustling. All other sounds had stopped. He smiled and whispered, "There, look right over there." She turned her head ever so slightly to her left, and there it was, about 60 to 70 yards away, leaning out from behind a tree. Then, as if it knew what my uncle was trying to do, it stepped out completely from behind that tree. She gasped and said her first instinct was to run, but she physically could not move. My uncle, on the other hand, she said had the biggest smile on his face. He didn't say a word, but would nod his head every now and then. The whole thing lasted no more than, she'd say, 5 minutes. My uncle then took his backpack off and took out a good-sized bag of red apples, a handful of chocolate bars, and a jar of peanut butter. She says she had no idea any of that was even in his backpack. He sets it down, then says to her, "All right, let's go." They started to walk back. She took a few glances back until the area was completely out of sight and the thing never made a move. That's when she started in with the questions. He said it's been a family secret for as long as anyone could remember. He had no idea who came up with the system to get them to come for a meeting. What he said to her next absolutely floored her, she said. He told her that she and anyone else would be fine as long as they never went past that pond. She says, "How could you possibly know that for sure?" He said, "Because it just told me." If she thought she was confused before, she was wrong. Now she was confused. "When did it tell you this?" she asked. "Right back there." "Right then," he said. "I was talking to him in my head." You can imagine how shocking this had to be to her. She said, "What was I supposed to do? I wouldn't have believed any of it had I not seen it with my own eyes. So why wouldn't I believe he was also talking to it through their heads?" She did say that he would nod his head from time to time. Well, needless to say, at 13 or 14, this was the coolest stuff I had ever heard. I wanted so badly to see it for myself, but I honestly knew better than to ask for something like that. They ended up giving the property to their only son. He still has it to this day. Last I talked to my aunt, she told me they did the same thing when passing it on to their son. Had the same kind of meeting. To be honest, I hope they keep it going forever. They look out for each other, and I think that's amazing. Now, I know how hard it's going to be for some to accept that this actually happened. All the time I spent in those woods, I never saw or heard anything. But then again, I always did like I was told and stayed away from where they were. So I obviously cannot confirm it. But I'll tell you this. These are two of the most loyal and trustworthy people anyone has ever known. I just can't understand why she would have made this up. I, for one, will always believe there are boogers on that property, even today.
This isn't worthy of my telling on a podcast. I don't even know if it was Sasquatch. I married young. My mother-in-law lived right near the Hudson in upper New York. Lots of odd things happened there, but this one scared me the most. I used to do a lot of nighttime fishing up there. It wasn't legal because of contamination that happened many years before. But I didn't care because I just did catch and release. Nothing too big, but lots of action. And late at night, there is no one around to complain. The area is mostly desolate. Just a couple houses on one side of the river, and nothing but wilderness on the other. At any rate, I had been fishing up there whenever we would visit. I would take the rowboat out in the middle of the night and do some fishing. On one trip, things started happening. It sounded like someone was tossing cinder blocks in the water, almost like full-grown deer were diving in. I could never make out what it was doing or what was doing it, and in all the time there, never saw a large fish breach or even caught anything large enough to make that much noise. It was like small boulders or cinder blocks were hitting the water, or large animals jumping in. The last time I went night fishing, I heard the splashes again. I decided to go out further between two islands in the middle of the river. There were a couple more big splashes from something big hitting the water. Then something like a large rock slammed into the front of my little rowboat, shoving it a good 6 to 10 inches to the side and putting me off balance. Now, there was no way any human could have hit the boat from the shore with a rock that large. It would have been a long throw with a baseball, but this was much larger. Besides, there were no houses on that side, no reason for any human to even be over there. I didn't wait to figure out who or what was doing it. If a rock that size were to hit me, it would cause severe damage, possibly even kill me. I got the heck out of there as fast as I could row that damn thing, but whatever threw that rock had to be immensely powerful. I was nowhere close to the shore. I was right in the middle of the river. I can only think I got too close to somewhere I wasn't wanted, or I was interrupting something. That was the end of my night fishing on the Hudson. I spent a long time trying to figure out what could possibly have happened. I can't help but think maybe I disturbed a family of Bigfoot bathing or fishing in the area, and they were trying to scare me off. That is about the only thing large enough to throw a rock that large, that far. Well, that's my story. Not much. My mother-in-law did used to tell me sometimes that something would walk around her cottage, but that could have been anything.
This happened about 30 years ago in upstate New York in a small town surrounded on all four sides by acres of woods connecting us to the Adirondacks. I headed to a pine forest one afternoon to pick princess pine for making Christmas wreaths. I took the four-wheeler parked it on an old logging road so I could drop down the middle of the forest. I was on a mission to get this pine and get home. I really wasn't paying much attention to my surroundings. As I was walking down a path towards where I knew there was a big patch of princess pine, I almost tripped over a huge dead doe. She looked like she was sleeping. No blood or injuries that I could see. People here are hard working, hand to mouth, and don't hunt for trophies. So I was shocked to see a deer laying there. I found the princess pine patch and got to work. The pine grows on the forest floor. I'd only been picking for a few minutes when, for the first time in my life in the woods, I suddenly felt watched. With a shot of primal fear, it came on like a lightning bolt. All of my hair right up on my arms to my neck all stood on end. I tried to ignore it, but I knew something was wrong, and I stood up. For about 20 seconds after standing up, I was lost. I turned around in a couple circles, and that's when I saw Bigfoot. Standing about 20 feet from me on the same path. So Bigfoot was in front of me, and behind me was the dead doe. I didn't hear anything because with pine straw, he was able to creep up on me. I have no words for the kind of fear I felt. Sheer terror. I was paralyzed. Like time stopped, and I was so confused. At the time, I had no reference point for a Bigfoot. We both stood there staring at each other. I had no idea what I was looking at. At the time, my brain was almost shorting out, wondering what this thing was. For years, I called it a monkey, then just called it a monster. He was the color of a black bear. He stood in a stance I would consider threatening. His hands were in fists. His mouth was open, and his bottom teeth were pushed like he had a broken jaw. His eyes were deep set and dark, and he looked furious. He was huge and muscular. It was a bitter cold day, and he also had steam rolling off him, which just added to the horror effect. He put his head back and huffed once. That's what broke my inability to move, and I took a hard left and started running. I ran right into a tree hard, scraping up my face. It knocked me down. I got up and kept running uphill, fast. That's when I heard a very close gunshot whiz by me. This just doesn't happen in the forest. So I crab ran, scared I was going to either be torn apart by this monster or shot. I will never know what the gunshot was about. I don't believe it was a coincidence. I went home, told my mother I saw a huge monkey in the forest, and she laughed. So I've told very few people since. I spent that night at my parents' with my newborn. I was shell-shocked. My husband was a logger. I was worried for him every day after this experience, but I never told him. I did ask him once if they had ever seen a Bigfoot, and he replied, laughing, "Why do people ask me that all the time?" It took a long, long time to stop having nightmares and get back to the woods again. I think they're flesh and blood creatures with a high level of intelligence, clever and sly. I think they have a language and they're capable of problem solving. I also believe they're dangerous. It's all theory, though, isn't it?
I was driving to go fishing with my son at a local fishing spot. We were around a mile or so from the lake, I would say. As I topped a hill in a slight bend, I spotted a big black bear in the road. I stopped because bear in the area are rare. I had never seen one in the area, but had heard stories about them. I was excited because not only I was getting to see it, but my son as well. Then very quickly, the bear stood up and turned towards us. And to my shock, it was not a bear at all. It was a huge thing, but not a bear. The thing was, I would say, between 8 to 10 feet tall, 3.5 to 4 feet wide at the chest and shoulders. It had a large head with dark eyes, either dark brown or black, a big flat nose, and the face was a little lighter brown than the body. It was not black, as I first thought, but a dark brown, almost black. And its fur, or hair, was around 4 inches long. It looked like a guy who spends all his time in the gym. It had fists around the size of a canned ham. I say this because one hand was closed into a fist and had something in it. I think it may have been a male because it had no breasts and might have had a bulge in the crotch area, but I wasn't focused on that. I am a religious man and have the light of God in my heart, and Jesus is my Lord. I immediately believed I was looking at a demon. I question that now, after talking to people who seem to know a lot about these things and reading a lot over it since I saw it. Think me mad if you will, but I slammed the vehicle in park, jumped out, and started preaching the gospel at the thing. I don't know if it's a demon for sure or not, but either it is, and the word of God heard it, or it just didn't know what to make of me, because it roared at me so loud and so deep I could feel its vibration, like a teen's car radio. It threw what it had in its hand. It flew a few feet above us and a good long way back up the road. Then it turned and ran with otherworldly speed. This all happened very fast. I could not say how fast, but from the time I stopped till it was up and gone was not long at all. I stood there a moment longer thinking I had just seen a demon. I got back in the vehicle to drive back and see what it was that threw it at me. It was part of a cottonmouth with its head and who knows how much of it missing. I chunked it in the back and went home. During all of this, my son had been screaming at me to get back in and let's go, and he was freaked out. He did not want me to stop when I turned around and was pushing me to go as fast as I could. I was not scared, because a demon not dare confront a man of God. Yet now, I'm not so sure that was a demon. From the sun, I don't scare very easily, and my dad seems to have no fear but spiders, and he is a big guy and I am like him, big. He is around 300, and even though I'm only 14, I'm as tall as him and almost as heavy. He is a little fat, but not too much. I'm all muscle, and you can call us corn-fed. My dad's a hell of a fighter, and I think me and Dad together could take just about anything you can throw at us. But I won't lie. My dad would be disappointed in me if I did. I was scared as hell when we came up on that Bigfoot. He wants me to talk to somebody because he is scared that I might be messed up for life. I was freaked and scared he was going to get his crazy butt killed, and me too, and I was screaming at him the whole time. And then when we did go, he stopped to go get that stupid snake with it nearby and wouldn't even break the speed limit, and that thing could have caught us. I just knew it would. But Dad said there are demons and said that's why no one can kill one or find one, and they don't leave bodies. I will never talk to anyone about this, and I'm just doing this to make him happy. I don't even like doing this. He stopped and started yelling at the Bigfoot. It yelled back and took off, thank God. They must not be mean, or it would have killed us. I know my dad can be very scary when he is mad, and he was mad as hell when he got out preaching at that Bigfoot. I'm not crazy. My dad may be, and now I think so even more than before. I don't know what it was. I just pray that I never see one again.